Hello, my name is Tanner Brummel, and this is how I completed the Boiler Capture the Flag room on TryHackMe. This room, it starts with the enumeration of a file server, and you can tell this because it's asking for a file extension after anonymous login, which is something you can program a file server to do. So I'll start by pinging the vulnerable machine, and then we're going to perform an Nmap stealth scan. That's going to scan for the version, and we're not gonna include ping, no host discovery, and then we're gonna scan all ports. All right, we got our map scan back. We have 4 open ports out of all the ports that we scanned. We're gonna look at this FTP service first, but we also have an HTTP service that's definitely gonna be looked at, and a secure looking service, as well as another secure service. So let's go with trying to log into the FTP service as anonymous. And we're going to do that by connecting to port 21 on the vulnerable machine, logging in as anonymous, and then performing our enumeration. And here we have our first flag or question. And there's not much else going on in here. Going back up to our Nmap scan, we can also answer the next questions. The highest port is it has the SSH service on it. Port 10,000 is running a webmin utility, which is a web-based admin management utility, and it's pretty secure, so you should not be able to exploit this service. And the CMS that we can access, well, with the 2 dead ends here and here, our only next place to look is going to be here, which would make sense because CMS is a content management system, and that's pretty much like WordPress or Drupal. We don't get much from the welcome page, and it would take a while to just try a bunch of random words. I use GoBuster to automate that process. This leads to some rabbit holes. You can just keep trying, but all right, we're going to streamline this process. We're back in a new terminal window, and we can use our GoBuster command, and we're going to run it on just the base website first, and we're going to use a word list that's just stored on Kali Linux. But web crawling and building your own targeted word list is going to be a lot more efficient. With our bust complete, we see Joomla and manual. So we're going to go to Joomla because that one sounds the most like a content management system, which also is the answer to our next question. From there, it tells us to just keep enumerating, and that we'll know when we find it. Since we were pointed to Joomla, I could only assume that means to hunt Joomla. And we just do that by entering Joomla into the URL bar. You could do all these different ones. You saw how I did robots.txt. Hit enter, and here we see it's a giant website. There's a login, there's multiple pages, there's probably links, there's a search bar, navigation. So from here, we could again do some manual URL busting, but we're going to use GoBuster again. With the same command entered previously, all we add is the Joomla directory, and it's going to do its thing from here instead. And we're going to have a whole bunch of directories to look through. I did manual searching through all of these, and a lot of them are loopholes. The biggest clue here is going to be the test directory, which is holding SAR to HTML. That's just an activity report tool that turns system activity into graphs and charts in HTML form. From here, if you Google this tool, you'll find that there's a possibility that if it's outdated, then it has a chance of being susceptible to remote code execution. The way that we do that, we add another directory in here. We go to the index.php directory. The parameter in the index.php is what we're changing because it's going to go to the server and then be executed over there. So what we do is we change the plot parameter right there. That's the vulnerability that's going to stop the PHP from being read. It's going to go and it's going to execute anything we put right here. If we do our enumeration, it's going to fill it into here. You can see it definitely did something because we changed the parameter. Then from there, it ran and filled up this drop down with all of the output. And that's going to be our answer for the final question in question set 1. And for question set 2, so I can concatenate the file that we just found using the same exact exploit. We'll do that just to read it. And boom, it worked. And here's a log. We have an actual log that we just opened up using an exploit on a server. And here we have our first set of credentials for this room. And we record those. And since they were used for SSH, that's leading us to believe that we can use them to log into that SSH we found in the Nmap scan. So we'll head there and use our first set of credentials. So we are in, we connected via SSH, and then we logged in as bastard. We can verify this, perform our enumeration, and then we can open anything we find that looks juicy. Here we have our next set of password. This is a backup file. They have their plain text password. From there, we can answer this question because that's where it was stored. From here, we know that that's most likely an SSH login. So we will exit this, redo it for the newly found credentials. I had to terminate the machine and get a new one up and running, so I have a different target address here. We're gonna retry that SSH connection because I completely lost connection to the machine. Yeah, I pinged it and I pinged out to Google just to make sure I still had connection out. Checked the tunnel using ifconfig. I'm not sure what happened, but I have it up and running again now. And we're gonna log in using the port we found. We can check to make sure we are who we logged in as, and then we can perform our enumeration, basic enumeration with the file system. Let's look at that super suspicious file, and we have our first flag. The only thing left to do now is make myself root, and this is kind of where I had to reach out to a walkthrough on this room to help with just remembering how to escalate my privileges. And I came back across GTFO bins, which are pretty much just regular legit tools that you can use to live off the land because they're on every Linux machine. So we can live off of this find tool. As long as it has the S bit set, we can use it to execute other binaries at root level privilege, like opening a bash shell as root. We can find out how many different commands and files are set with the set user ID bit. Ironically, using the syntax find permissions set to 4000 and hide any errors that pop up on that end in a black hole. After it ran for a second, we found that this binary executable does have the S bit set, so we can maliciously use it to escalate our privileges in our current area using this syntax. We're going to execute binary shell, and we're going to make sure that it maintains its privilege, and we're going to tell find to stop. And then we're going to make sure it worked. From here, we can go to the root directory and enumerate and find our final flag. And it really wasn't that hard, was it?